Hello, and welcome back to my channel. Now, I always tell people to ask questions in the comments if they have them about me, and some people do, and I try to answer those in the comments or make a video about them, but here, I want to offer you some basic information about me that most people probably don't know. So here are 10 facts about me. 1. I don't take my phone into the bathroom. Now, I'm going to tell you right off the bat, I'm referring to the toilet, but not everyone in the world refers it to that, and I've spent the last 46 years of my life calling it the bathroom, so that's what I'm going to continue calling it. I'm not one of those people that spends a lot of time in the bathroom. I prefer to get in and get out as quickly as possible, so I don't bring my phone in there with me. If I'm out in public, obviously my phone will be in my pocket, but I don't take it out. If I'm at home, I leave my phone wherever I was before I went to the bathroom. I don't spend a lot of time in there on my phone. I don't really play many mobile games, and I try not to be on social media more than I need to. 2. I don't watch YouTube. I notice in the comments that people clearly assume I watch YouTube. At least true crime videos from things people have said, but I don't. I have listened to a lot of podcasts, especially when I was still in construction. I would listen to podcasts while I drove around to job sites or when I was occasionally on site doing labor. That was mostly true crime, but I listened to some other trivia and history. I have never watched YouTube outside of seeing what my kids have watched. I was just never interested in YouTube. I never actually set out to be on YouTube. I wanted to start a podcast and it just evolved into a YouTube channel. I don't like marijuana. Now I'll preface that by saying I have no problem with anybody smoking it or it being legal. I tried marijuana a couple of times when I was a teenager and it just wasn't my thing. I was a big drinker from my teens into my late 20s. Then I stopped drinking altogether when I got married, and now I don't not drink. I'll have an occasional drink, but it's pretty rare. Back to marijuana. Once it became legal in Washington state when I lived there, I tried it again, but I just didn't like it. I don't like the feeling of being high. That said, I don't have any problem with marijuana in general. My wife has used it to manage anxiety, and I definitely think it's better than smoking cigarettes. 4. I never graduated from high school. I never did well in school. I was defiant, I questioned authority, and that just isn't what public school in the US is designed for. And I don't mean questioning authority as an angsty teenager. I remember in 3rd grade having problems in class when my teacher would tell me to do classwork and I would ask why. It was never enough for me to just be shown what to do. I always wanted to know why I needed to do it that way and why I needed to learn it, and it caused problems. In high school, as a troubled teen from a broken home, my defiance got worse and I was eventually kicked out in the middle of 12th grade. I hadn't passed enough classes to have graduated at the end of the year anyway. I went on to get my GED and took some community college classes and then attended the Art Institute of Seattle for a year. But that's the extent of my education. The rest of my education has come from life, which I think is what works for some people. I definitely didn't fail high school classes because I'm stupid. Public school just wasn't right for me, and at the time there weren't a lot of other options. 5. I had a record deal. I started my first band when I was 15. I played grunge and then punk rock. I was one of the more well-known musicians in my small town, and I played a lot of shows throughout my teens. I grew up in Bremerton, Washington, which is the hometown of the band MXPX, and I was friends with those guys. Tom was actually one of my best friends growing up, and we were in our first bands together while he was still playing drums. Before he joined MXPX, we formed a band with Mike called the Cootees, and we started playing shows around town. After MXPX got signed to an indie label in Seattle, the owner of that label ended up signing the Cootees too. We ended up recording a full-length album that was released in 1996 while I was the tender age of 19. I spent time touring as a bass player or roadie for other bands, and the Cootees ended up playing shows all over the US. You can listen to the album on any streaming service. The album technically never recouped expenses, and I've never seen a penny from album sales. I think it would be hilarious if the record label suddenly saw a spike in plays for the Cootees, as I haven't talked to any of them in decades. 6. I had a stalker. In my days playing in the Cootees, I ended up having a stalker. Now, I want to preface this by saying that I know that other stalker stories are far more serious than this, but she was still a stalker. After the Cootees album came out, it sold a decent amount and we got fans from all over the place. There was an address in the album cover where people could send fan mail, and eventually we got a letter that was addressed specifically to me from some girl that was a typical fan letter as far as I can remember. I wrote back with the typical "thanks so much" response and didn't think anything about it again. Then one day, I was 19 or 20 at the time, I was called to come into the record label office to look at a picture that had been faxed over of a missing girl. Turns out, the girl had told her friends that I was her boyfriend and that she was moving to Bremerton so we could start a band together. Then she took her father's car and drove from somewhere in Saskatchewan, Canada to Bremerton, Washington, a drive that would have taken a full day. She was 15 years old. So I went in to look at this picture to see if I had seen her, which I hadn't. She had apparently gotten to Bremerton and run into some of my close friends at a Denny's, and when she told them about me, they were all like, "Yeah, we know Giles." They later told me they thought it was weird how much she seemed to know me, and they had never heard of her. Those friends were people I hung out with every day, so you'd think they'd know about her, but they were young and they just kinda shrugged it off. Ultimately, she got pulled over in town, and the police held her until her father could travel to Bremerton and they drove back to Saskatchewan together. I never encountered her. She later wrote me a letter which came to my home address, telling me all these excuses for what she had done, and said she asked her father if she could take his car, but he must have misunderstood. I wrote her back, saying something along the lines of asking her to find someone to talk to and to please not contact me, and I never heard from her again. I do sometimes wonder whatever happened to her. I hope she sorted things out and has had a happy life. 7. I've been married for 19 years. My wife and I recently celebrated our 19th wedding anniversary. Every single person in both of our immediate families who have been married have divorced except us. So at this point, we're staying together just to hold that over everyone's head. Now, we're quite happy and work pretty well with each other. No relationship is perfect and we still have our fights, but I think it helps that neither of us are selfish people. I think a lot of relationships fail because one or both people care more about what they want and are unwilling to compromise. We both are very willing to work to make the other happy. Also, we have our own blankets when we sleep, which accounts for 80% of our marriage success. My suggestion, if you and your significant other are still trying to use the same blanket on the bed, stop. Each get your own blanket. You'll thank me for it. 8. I've been to jail. That's right, I am a criminal. The truth is, I have no criminal record. You can run my info in any database in the US and nothing will come up, even though I've been to jail. Once I was in jail for driving on a suspended license after having not paid a number of tickets. I was in a holding cell for a few hours before posting bail. I went to court, paid all the fines, ended up getting my license back, and that kind of thing doesn't stay on your record. I was like 20, young and irresponsible. The other time I was in jail, I actually served hard time. 40 days in county lockup. I was probably 24 at the time, and my band was doing a little tour down the West Coast. While driving near Sacramento, a guy tried to cut in front of us on the highway. He lost control of his car and crashed into the center concrete divider. He ended up telling the cops that I rammed him from behind with our van, so I eventually got pulled over by a half a dozen highway patrol and arrested for vehicular assault, which I didn't do. My bandmates tried to show the cops that there was no damage on the front of our van and I clearly didn't ram the guy, but they didn't care. I was booked in on Friday, and first thing Monday morning I went to court with a public defender that knew nothing about the case. Which made sense, because the file she got had no pictures of our van, and all of the statements from me and my friends denying that I hit the guy were gone. Eventually, she told me that I could spend 6+ months fighting a trial, or I could plead no contest, get a 60-day sentence, serve 2/3 of that, and not have it on my record. Needless to say, I took the deal. Which I shouldn't have, because I was young, unmarried, no kids, no real responsibility. I had the time. I should have fought it out of principle, but I was young and impatient and just wanted to get back home. On top of everything, my insurance denied the guy's claim since the damage on the vehicles didn't match his story. Not only was there no damage to the front of our van, there was no damage to the back of his car. I clearly did not ram him from behind. The guy appealed the insurance company's decision and was denied again. He could have then tried to sue me directly, but never did. That I would have absolutely fought and would have had more than enough evidence to win a civil case. 9. I have a high tolerance to painkillers and sedatives. Some of you might know this, but it's common for people with red hair to also have a high tolerance to sedatives and painkillers. It's also common for us to have a high pain tolerance in general. When I got my wisdom teeth removed, the dentist gave me an injection of sedatives that were supposed to put me to sleep. He came back in the room after 5 minutes and asked how I felt, and I said, fine. He gave me another dose and came back 5 minutes later, and when he asked how I felt again, I said fine. He told me he could legally give me one more dose, and when he came back in the room 5 minutes later and asked how I felt, I said, I feel great. It was finally starting to work. I later learned about the redhead tolerance to anesthesia, and when I cut the tip of my finger off with a circular saw and needed stitches, I told the doctor that I would need more anesthesia than usual. Well, she gave me a single shot of Lanacane, and after a few minutes she just started sewing. Needless to say, that one shot wasn't enough, and having someone jam a needle into my already injured finger wasn't the most pleasant experience. She had to give me 2 more shots before she was able to stitch me up. That said, I also have a high pain tolerance. And yes, I know I just said the needle hurt, but nobody has a high enough pain tolerance to make a needle in your finger not hurt, so save it. I fell off a ladder and broke my wrist and didn't even know until my wrist swelled up so much on one side it looked like there was half a golf ball under my skin. I went to the hospital and got fully casted and never had any kind of painkillers. 10. I got my first tattoo when I was 15. I grew up in Bremerton, and my pivotal teen years were through the 90s. We could take a ferry to Seattle occasionally so we could take advantage of what a bigger city had to offer. Mainly record stores that sold punk music and clothing stores that sold Doc Martens and punk jewelry. That would also be where we would have gone to get a decent tattoo if we were old enough. There are good tattoo shops everywhere now, but back then our small town only had a few and they weren't known to be of much quality. It turned out my friends and I weren't too concerned about quality because it was on one of those sporadic trips to Seattle that one of us picked up a bottle of India ink. From there, we used a needle to give each other small tattoos, dot by dot. My first tattoo was at 15 and it was a little hard on my hand near my thumb. I gave myself a couple other small tattoos and then started working on a full misfit skull on my left arm, which is now covered up. The process was too slow for us, so we ended up building a tattoo machine out of stuff around the house. We took a motor from a remote control car, a bent spoon, a guitar string, and a sewing needle and built a pretty reliable machine. With that, I tattooed my name on my left arm, also covered up. We would give other kids tattoos in the bathroom of our junior high. Something that was completely irresponsible, but we were dumb kids doing what dumb kids do. All of the homemade tattoos that I once had are covered up now. So there you have it, 10 facts about me. If there's anything else you want to know about me, you can leave those questions in the comments, or if there's something you want me to elaborate on from this video, leave that in the comments as well. If you like these videos, hit subscribe and you can continue on this journey with me. Thanks so much, and be safe.